Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it EPCOT. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, the official podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. I'm your host, Todd McCartney, and this episode is episode number 54, A Very 90s Christmas. So we'll be taking you back to the early 90s and some of those wonderful TV specials and even Disney Channel specials that featured the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and a brand new, semi-brand new Disney MGM Studios back then. But before we get to that, as always, introduce everybody on the show. Coming to us from Ohio, as always, Mr. JT Kuzier. How are you doing tonight, JT?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's been a year. Man, I can't believe we're wrapping up. I was just thinking about this. You know, I don't want to congratulate ourselves too much here, but we've had a great, fun year. It's been awesome. But yeah, we got some snow today. I don't know about you guys, a little snow.
We had about 16 inches the last week, and we're melting now, and we'll be back to more later this week.
All right.
Coming from Tampa, Florida tonight, as always, too, is Mr. Hal Bowers. How you doing tonight, Hal?
Good. Mele Kalikimaka, everybody.
Yes. No snow down there at balmy 75. You have shorts on. I'm jealous.
No snow. Hot cocoa right here, ready to go.
Oh.
So,
are you serious?
Yeah.
Hot or lukewarm? Like, what do you drink down there? Is it?
Still drink it hot.
You still drink it? Okay. All right.
I mean, after
they're not savages.
And coming into us from Philadelphia, Mr. Brian P. Miles, the only individual when I sent the team a photo of George Washington from the National Portrait Gallery, he would be the only one to identify not only that it was George Washington, but who painted it. So I was pretty impressed with that, Brian, and welcome to the episode as always.
Season's greetings and salutations from Philadelphia, where we do know that Gilbert Stuart painted that famous painting of George Washington that Dolly Madison saved when the British were coming to burn the White House. And
she saved it. What'd she do? Like tuck it away somewhere, or
cut it out of the frame, and they took it with them when they ran away from the White House. And
what a story! Okay.
Then the British troops came and burned it in the White House, and then we had to rebuild it.
Yeah, that's true.
So nice, if anybody ever gets down to DC, Portrait Gallery, a lot of fun. All right, well, before we get to our main topic, we have a comment from last month. This comes from Carrie Hugh in Iowa City, Iowa. She says she just listened to episode 53, where another listener asked about rare items from World Showcase countries. So remember we talked about that last month, guys? I think we pointed out the Arribas Brothers Crystal Castle and a few things. And she says, I'm sure I won't be the first or only person to mention that there was, or as of my last visit a year ago was still there, a very expensive and elaborate jade carving for sale in the China Pavilion House of Good Fortune. It was priced $2,000. She went back to the parks for the first time since the late 80s in 2016. She saw the jade carving and remembered something similar from her childhood. So given the hefty price tag, she was wondering if that could be the same ones. So she says maybe it's been there for 37 years in that glass case. So kind of interesting. So have you guys seen or know what that is? Or do you think it's in the same ballpark as the Arribas Brothers Castle?
I need to look now. I want to go see this thing. If it's the good House of Good Fortune shop.
So kind of interesting. So if anybody else out there has any other large scale or large cost items that are floating around World Showcase, we'd love to know about them. So, all right. Well, JT, in that snow, you got the mailbag. You kind of had to drag it through a couple inches, but I hope they're dry and sorted out on the radiator there. You can go through this mailbag for us.
Yeah, I hung them on a string here, like darkroom style, like in the office. I got
little
some
paper clips. I mean,
yeah. So they've dried out. The ink has quit running. So here we go. Because all of our listeners handwrite the letters with a quill pen. All right.
Well, that's just like Martha Washington would do and George Washington. See, it's
exactly.
It's a great circle.
Connecting here. First one is from Richard. He says he plans on coming to the half marathon in April. I assume he's talking Star Wars because that's what's happening in April. But he wants to ask our expert opinion. He'll be on property for one day when he'll have to do a training run for about 13 miles. Unless he's doing a different half marathon, I'm not sure. Is there a path or a road he could go on that would take him to the old runway that the WED guys used in 1970 when they were building the Magic Kingdom? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's talking about the STOL Port, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Now, I'll give you two pieces of advice here, Richard. Number one, if you're following the Disney training plan, don't run the 13 miles right before the marathon. You don't need to do that. Make your 13 miles the actual run. But if you're there just doing a training run, I've never seen... It's like if you veer right off the main drag there to Fort Wilderness, you turn right, kind of past the Magic Kingdom a ticket booth or not ticket booth, the what do you guys call that? The parking plaza.
The parking toll booth.
You're going to pass that. You turn right towards Fort Wilderness. On your left, you can see what is left of the STOL Port. There's lots of storage there, containers. Sometimes it's covered in construction equipment, different things. They stage things there. You're not going to really be able to run there. I mean, I guess you could attempt to. I've seen people walking various places at Disney, but it's not a easily accessible place. Now, as far as running 13 whole miles at Disney, that I've found to be a tough ask. I mean, Fort Wilderness is a good option because you can loop a lot of places and run through the loops. I did a training run one time through Saratoga Springs, and I ended up at the Treehouse Villas, which is cool. So I was running across golf courses and things like that, and that seemed to be okay. But for big high mileage, it's kind of tricky. Not that saying that 13's a ton, but that's a lot of land to cover there. And for the races, they actually have you on the actual highways to get that mileage in. So. Yep. Best of luck in your quest. I'm sure you could look over there as you drive by, even maybe even stop real quick and take a quick picture. But I don't know if I would actually go running over there due to all the worker activity and stuff.
Yeah, and if he wants the actual road names, you're making a right onto Vista Boulevard, and then if you continue up World Drive just before you make the right to go on Timberline Drive to go to Wilderness Lodge, there's some pathways and parking lots there. So. If you do wind up running it or walking through it and you see any airport markers on the pavement, take a shot. We'd love to see them. So
yeah, it's very wide. It's like a really wide road. I mean, it's like a runway they've just used to put stuff. So, all right, next up is Brian. He says, very random question for the folks at RetroWDW, and he tagged How on this. How early was there hold music when you called Disney World? Does anyone know? Was there a music loop when calling in early 1971 to make reservations? What do we know on that?
We don't know anything about that.
They didn't have any music on hold because Walt personally answered all of your calls back then.
Now, what I did find out is that music on hold systems go back to the 1960s, so it's entirely plausible. And what I found out is that the gentleman who invented it actually owned some sort of facility that had a metal building, and he accidentally attached some of the wires from his phone system onto the frame of the metal building, and it pulled in radio signals, and the radio just showed up on their phone system one day. So he figured out what was causing it to happen and then turned it into a sellable product, at first with a radio receiver, and then finally, with tapes and things. So the technology did exist then. I would invite our listeners, if any of you happen to work there in the 70s or 80s, and when they first had music on hold, please write us and let us know, because I'm fascinated now.
Yeah, this might be a posting we could make to that We Worked at Disney in the 70s group and see if they're usually a good resource. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had whatever the latest technology was, because they would have bought it all new. So they probably had whatever the latest and greatest was in 1969, 1970.
Yeah, and then I'm sure it got revamped in the 80s when
Sure.
EPCOT came. And all right, so thanks, Brian. Appreciate that question. Next up, Jason Burley. Jason been catching up here. He's been binge listening. He's getting there. But he says on a few of the older episodes, he's heard it's mentioned RetroWDW logo pins. Are they still available? They are. You can go to retromagic.org right now, make a small donation for a pin. We have some various ones on there. We also have our ornament collection and a few other things that are tax-deductible donations to the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. So that's retromagic.org, Jason. We also, he wrote, I came across some photos from my parents' trip to Disney World in 1976, including several of the Christmas stage at the castle. We'd love to see those, Jason. And then finally he says, I was reading a book about EPCOT and came across a funny photo. It's in the chapter of the UK Pavilion. There's a construction photo on page 219.
I'm opening it up right now.
Okay, we'll do this live. Walt Disney's EPCOT. On the roof of one of the buildings, there's a tarp that someone has painted saying, so-and-so is a mama's boy. Just wondering if you've taken notice of that. So Todd is taking notice now to see.
I have a 10x loop because it's really, really hard to see. And let me take another look.
Explain that for people that aren't in the hobbying world. The 10x loop, Todd.
It's a small magnifier that you hold up to your eye.
So Todd's got a magnifying glass.
Let's just put it that way. So hold on here. Let me do this.
I want to find out who's a mama's boy.
Yeah,
and I want to see if I can get a 10x loop in my office.
It's really odd. It looks like BOOIV. Boy.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Right.
A crummy commercial?
Yes. So yes, BOOIV
is a mama's boy.
Boovy?
And it's right on the. It's definitely. Let's see here. It's definitely the
Which
UK
pavilion is it?
This is over. This would be on the roof facing the lagoon over the Rose and Crown, which is hilarious.
Like you just know Dick Nunes never saw that because some guy would be getting thrown off the roof.
So BOOIV. I'm curious what.
What if you found the guy? Just calling to see if you loved your mama.
How's mama doing?
Well, that's very exciting, Jason. We appreciate that. So this, again, for our listeners, he's in the Walt Disney's EPCOT book, page 219. If you know who or what Booiv is, let us know, and Jason will report back as we dig into this. But he is or isn't a mama's boy. We haven't confirmed.
It's on my office bookshelf. I can't wait to look at it tomorrow. Although
I don't
have a spyglass.
Bring your loop. You're gonna
bring your telescope.
Get your mighty microscope and shrink yourself down.
I'll scan it in at like 10,000 DPI for everybody.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna wrap up the mailbag here with a digital piece of mail. Lainey left us a voicemail on the Retro hotline. So let's go ahead and listen now.
Hi, my name is Lainey Ty, and I am questioning. I have a memory of a baby being born in the bathroom next to Star Traders. I mention it to my kids every time we walk by there that somebody gave birth in a toilet, believe it or not. And I'm sure it's true, but if you could look into that, and is that the only birth that happened at Walt Disney World? I'd be curious to find that out as well. Good luck finding that info for me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So thanks, Lainey, for that. And I think Hao has some info on the birth statistics on Disney property.
I actually remember when this happened because it was all over the local news channels. The child was born in the toilets, not by Mickey's Star Traders, but the ones that were underneath the Skyway over by Space Mountain.
Okay.
And the story was that on the night of November 8th, 1997, it was a particularly cold evening, and two ladies on vacation wandered into the bathroom after the fireworks were over, the old Fantasy in the Sky fireworks, and found a baby with its umbilical cord and placenta in the toilet. And it, like, you know, emergency services were called. It's like the baby was fine, but it was a big mystery of who would abandon this baby in a toilet. And within a day or two, I think, you know, it's like they took the baby to the hospital, took care of it. And then I don't know who named it, but somewhere in the media, because, you know, Aladdin was just out and the baby looked, for lack of a better term, somewhat ethnic, they decided to name the baby Jasmine, which is kind of terrible, I think. So baby Jasmine, there's this big mystery around, you know, who is baby Jasmine's parents. And it actually took a little bit of time to sort out who it was. She went into foster care at first, and then what happened is someone came forward. There was a family that was visiting from the Philippines that came to Orlando and stayed with friends and went to the park. And the mom turned out to be Madonna Arcelona, a 43-year-old tourist from the Philippines. She was... Have you ever seen that show, like, I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant? Do you remember when that was on? Like,
Yeah.
So apparently this was one of those... I don't know if that was her situation, but, like, the rest of the family didn't know that she was pregnant because she was apparently just heavy set, so they just assumed, you know, they didn't know. They recalled they were watching the fireworks, and she excused herself to go to the bathroom because she had stomach pains and was in there for a long time. And then she came out and said nothing. She went back to the Philippines without saying anything to the family that was in the United States. And after the story came out, the aunt and uncle that she was staying with kind of figured out maybe it was her. So they got a blood test done with, apparently this would have been this mother's 9th child. And that's one of those things that I remember watching that show. I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant. It's like, it was typically like 5th, 6th pregnancy. It's like where they didn't realize they were pregnant. So I guess that's kind of a common thing. They did it. She had, I think, an 18-month-old sister. So they did a blood test with the mom and the sister, and it matched. So they knew that was the mom. The Orlando Police Department put out an arrest warrant for the mother, but since I don't know if it's not worth extraditing or if they don't have the extradition things and if she ever comes back to Orlando, she would be arrested for child abandonment and child endangerment, but they wouldn't bring her back to Orlando for justice. The baby was in foster care for a few months, and then finally the aunt and uncle ended up adopting the baby, as well as the 18-month-old relative that was in the Philippines. And they apparently now live in Boston, and they didn't stick with the name Jasmine, and they're trying to, of course, put the situation behind them. But and the answer is no. This is not the only time that it's happened. I was watching a random episode of That I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant, and there was another case where a woman didn't know she was pregnant and gave birth in Walt Disney World. You know, I bet it happens not frequently, but often enough that, you know, they have stuff in place for it, because, you know, you never know. Kids are born all the time, and people go on vacation now quite a lot. I see pregnant ladies there all the time, and I'm sure, you know, my wife went when she was pregnant with our youngest, so, you know, I'm sure it happens quite a bit.
There is another report in 2018, November 5th, 2018. A newborn baby was handed to a stranger outside the Animal Kingdom Lodge.
All right. Well, good job, Hal. Okay, so thanks a lot, Lainey. Appreciate that call. If you would like to leave us one of these new fancy digital messages, 978-71-RETRO. Your voice could actually be on the show instead of your words, or both, technically. And if you'd like to just write us a traditional letter, podcast@RetroWDW.com. You can tweet at us. You can direct message us. However you want to get your question or comment to us, please feel free to do so, and you could end up on a future episode.
All right, well, it's time for this month's audio rewind. And how, you've been picking out these different rewinds, and I really liked that you're getting the listeners last month kind of prepped for the year of the film next year. Right?
Oh, of course.
2020
is all part of
the
a deeply methodical plan.
Exactly. So you've got them psyched up for it.
If you've seen Knives Out, this is nothing compared.
I haven't.
My
Don't
process
say anything.
is nothing compared to that.
Yeah, I gotta go see that too. So we will have another year of the film hint, or at least letting you at the end of the show here, letting everybody know where we are going in January 2020 in that episode. But anyway, let's see if you guys guessed the answer to last month's audio rewind.
Nice. Camera. Action.
All right, and if you guessed the Great Movie Ride, you were incorrect. This was actually Vincent Price's introduction to Sorcery in the Skies at the Disney MGM Studios. So we do have a winner this month. Congratulations to Jesse Edwards. We'll get the prize packed out to you shortly. And I think, guys, it's only appropriate that this is the holiday episode here and Christmas and everything. I think we should give away one of our ornament sets. And so for those who could guess the answer to this month's audio rewind. If you think you know the answer to this month's audio rewind, send your guesses to contest@RetroWDW.com. All correct entries will be entered into a random drawing to determine the winner. All entries must be received by January 10th, 2020. All right, well, it is time for this month's main topic, and as the title of the episode states, A Very 90s Christmas. So we are getting into that time period where the 90s are becoming nostalgic and retro. It's hard to believe. So we are going to actually go through 3 different television specials and Christmas Day parades that occurred in the early 90s. First, JT is going to take us through the Walt Disney World A Very Merry Christmas Parade from 1993. And then Brian will take us through A Musical Christmas at Walt Disney World from 1993, which was actually aired on the Disney Channel. And then Hal will close it out with A Very Merry Christmas Parade from 1995. You're going to hear a lot of similarities and differences, and the setup and kind of the alignment of both of the parades was very, very similar. I've watched them all. I'm going to provide some additional color commentary here and such as we go through. But JT, I'm going to turn it over to you. This is really getting into your expertise area. The early to mid 90s is, what you remember the most,
yes.
Right? So this is, you're going to be excited for this year too, seeing that it's the year of the movie. We're going to probably spend a lot of time over in the studios.
I love it. The studio's my favorite. This is, I was 10 when this one came out, this first one. So it was, right when you kind of start remembering things a little bit. And
Right.
Totally didn't appreciate Disney yet, for the way we appreciate it now, but I enjoyed it and I had fun with it. But I can remember these parades they were always aired on Christmas Day, at least, my memory.
Live too.
And imagine a 10-year-old me, though, you've got, this pile of presents. We were fortunate to get gifts and things. And it was always my aunt calling saying, like, hey, the Disney parade's on. Because we were, a Disney family. We'd all go down together. And it was always like a shock because you just were like, if this day couldn't get any better, oh my gosh, there's flip on the show and there's Regis Philbin and Joan London. There they are going up, Main Street on a sleigh. And that's kind of where we start with these. I do dig, though. I look back on this, and I love these panning shots they have, and the bumpers of the helicopter flyovers of things.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's some beautiful footage in there of that for sure.
Yeah, it's so.
This is pre-drone, right? Like you said, this is really they had to put the expense of a helicopter flying over the Caribbean beach and. Some of the clips you'll recognize from other videos too. They've certainly reused a lot of this footage over the years too.
It's so cool though, and I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I wonder if somebody's actually there just seeing a helicopter come trucking by, like low altitude. That'd be super awesome. But this one is, like I said, Christmas of '93. It starts us off with I don't remember Robbie Benson. What was his big thing?
He was the voice of the Beast in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, is that why he's on all this?
That's why he's front and center in 1993, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so that explains it. All right, well...
And he's kind of like the reporter on the street type guy.
Yeah,
right?
he does
kind of set this up that Kathy Lee and Regis are they're kind of like the Matt Lauer and Katie Couric of the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Day Parade back then, right? They sat in one seat.
Yeah, they rolled up.
Marshals.
They start off. They roll up in like a wheeled sleigh down Main Street, and they do the They look at the camera and introduce us, and then they're kind of perched in a spot. I think it's almost near the flagpole. Magic Kingdom, looking back down towards Main Street is behind them, and that's sort of where they MC the whole show for us there. One of the other things that pops up, there's these great early 90s bumpers, brought to you by Kraft, and those type of things. And one of them, which I recall so much back then, was the promotion, and how you can chime in is they really pushed the Kissimmee St. Cloud area.
Yes, they did.
And I remember getting an infomercial, or a pamphlet saying in the mail, stay in Kissimmee St. Cloud, and I would always be like, well, we stay at Disney. What's the difference? What's the benefit? But why was it pushed so hard back then? Is there a reason?
So I'm guessing, this is the time when they finally expanded 192 and the Earlo Bronson Highway and made, that strip a big deal. So, if you couldn't afford to stay at Disney, it's like that was the next closest place that you could stay. And I believe it's Kissimmee St. Cloud because the government body is like the Kissimmee St. Cloud something organization. And that's what everything was promoted against. So today you have programs like Visit Florida that was a state-sponsored thing to get tourism to come. That was a city or county-sponsored initiative to try to get people to come and stay and spend money, in the Kissimmee St. Cloud area.
Okay.
I was going to say, I remember those. There were so many commercials on over that time period about Kissimmee. A lot of them were even run in our area where I lived up in the tri-state area. I remember seeing them, and they barely mention Disney sometimes. They're just like, come on down. Like, oh, okay.
Well, a couple things. First, on that they did not yet open the All-Stars, so they had no value resorts.
No, we're going to touch on that, Brian.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure that's being promoted in your show. But before you go any further, a couple of notes about the Christmas parade. The first one was 1983. And at this time, the ones we're talking about tonight, they were still broadcast live. They used to do those live in person on Christmas Day. So you were seeing a live feed. Now everything's recorded in early November.
Yep.
And packaged up. But back then, you were Robbie Benson and Regis and all the acts and all that was all happening live on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and I'll tell you two other additional facts. This was not a program that the networks willingly put on. This was a paid advertisement that was placed on Christmas morning. That was done entirely as an advertisement for Walt Disney World. So this wasn't like someone saying hey, let's put on a show. It's it was basically an hour and a half infomercial.
And before you blame it on Michael Eisner and his penchant for promotion, it actually started a year before Michael Eisner became the CEO. They started under the Ron Miller administration.
Yeah. And if you think back then, they didn't really do quote unquote advertising. They didn't buy
any
TV commercials and spot. Yeah.
Right.
So this this was a big deal to do that. So, and did you know that this show has actually won Emmy Awards? The 1992 special actually won a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Achievement in Costume Design. I think primarily for the dancing Christmas trees and some of the other things that we will see over and over.
So back to my assimilation earlier, of what Kathy Lee, I Robbie Benson, he's kind of like Al Roker running around throughout the parade route. And
he starts us off. He's got his kid outside the main entrance there, and he's getting people jacked up, and then he runs in with his kid. Come on with me, and then it turns into the whole hoopla of let's start the parade off. We also have
he's wearing a red plaid with a blue turtleneck.
He's extremely excited too.
Yeah, he annoys me a little bit. But.
No, I agree.
I will say, for having won an Emmy for outstanding costume design, the one thing I see over and over again is that the clothes that the hosts are wearing are typically terrible.
Oh, Kathy Lee takes the cake.
She's got that
wardrobe, as you know,
thing.
how wardrobe and costume are two different things.
That's true. That's
But the whole time
true.
I'm watching them, all I can think about is, you want a cafe latte? I can get you a cafe latte. I'll get you as many cafe lattes as I want. Like that's what Robbie Benson throws off.
Yes, it is very much so.
So our main players, we mentioned Regis, Joan London, and Kathy Lee. Even though she's not with Regis, she is at the MGM Studios. And I will say, if you look at her, she's standing in front of the marquee there, the big tall archway thing that says MGM Studios. I noticed these kids wearing the Mickey hats that I rocked at that era. They're the embroidered ball cap with the M and Mickey head. I was like, yep, had that hat. And we also have so timely for the early 90s, Bill Nye the Science Guy as a... And I'm just going to... You kind of use deductive reasoning here. Which park do you think they stationed him at?
It's got to be Epcot.
It's got to be Epcot is right. And what was the year? I was going to look at this. I didn't even look. When did he join Universe of Energy? Was it around this time? After this?
1996.
Okay, so we have a few years before that.
But they were...
So...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say his show actually got switched from being on broadcast TV to being broadcast on the Disney Channel, and they produced new episodes on the Disney Channel of his show. So I think that was the first introduction. And then as they did his show, there was actually a small exhibit about him in Interventions at Epcot.
Okay, makes sense.
So,
and now he's suing Disney for not getting enough money. Did you guys see that? Like right now. So we're coming full circle here with Bill Nye. Go ahead.
There is one other thing I want to point out that we mentioned this was live TV, and I don't know if you guys caught it, but at the 8:38 mark, let me drop it in our chat here. Take a look. This is going on, and they quickly cut away. All of a sudden, it goes by, and the janitor comes up, and the horses have left a little present on the on the pavement, and the custodian comes up to sweep it away, and they quickly cut to another camera. So it does prove that it's live. It definitely is live.
Oh my gosh! And there's splashtacular footage in here. Sorry, I don't want to
Yeah, I know we're all over the place. There's a lot of stuff.
It is. It's a good special. I will say as much as I didn't go to college here. I was watching. I see Ohio State marching band from Ohio State and Columbus right here, which starts there, and we also have numerous guests from Cleveland and Kent State and different things with Robbie Benson throughout. So if you're one of the few people in Ohio that listen, this is definitely got some Ohio references. I am more the type of person, I'm watching the parade, and I don't get as excited about the elves jumping around and the snowmen and that sort of stuff, but I did get blown away by Snow White ice skating on the float. That float rolls by, and Snow White is actually in ice skates, and I assume it's real ice. It's not like a fake faux ice or anything. This float actually has real ice on it.
Yeah. No, it is a faux ice.
Oh, it is.
It's there's this vinyl like material that was developed during that time period that you could they used it at a show on at Lake Buena Vista too, and you could skate on it.
They also used it for the Jolly Holidays dinner show at the Contemporary in the ballroom of the Contemporary. Yeah.
Oh, you thought it had an actual refrigeration?
I really was hoping it did. It was dripping condensation.
I've actually skated on it. One of our shore towns in South Jersey had it out for Christmas, for like Thanksgiving weekend a couple of years ago, and it's odd. I don't have any other way to say it other than it's odd.
But still, putting on a float is a great idea.
Oh yeah,
like it's very cool, and it's genuinely, it has to be difficult to like skate on a moving object.
When they would do a triple Lutz between floats was like, whoa.
So the JT, are you going to get into the music video of Typhoon Lagoon?
There is a couple bumpers and different things. There's a music video with that. Man, I have the minute mark here. It's like around
13 or so. Yeah, 13, 14.
There's some elves coming down the slide. There's elves on the beach.
And they're singing a song and spelling out the word vacation because they're supposedly on vacation
elves, now that Christmas is over. Kathy Lee told us all the elves, where do they go on vacation? Disney World.
Disney World.
The sharks are in there.
They
too.
are. The Shark Reef makes an appearance, which when I did the Shark Reef, they could have sped up this footage. The sharks were down low and kind of chill. These elves really stirred them up because they jump in and then they're zipping around real fast. But yeah, I don't know.
If you're anybody who knows the stock footage well, you'll notice cut amongst the actual dance numbers and things with the elves and penguins and snowmen and whatnot. You will certainly notice a lot of stock footage cut in. That one with the kid kind of going down spread eagle down the little mini slide is in there. A couple other pieces that we've seen hundreds of times over. So yeah, it's mildly annoying as well.
It's a very good piece. After that we run into, which I would argue that this wasn't the same exact moment as the parade. Like, this had to be pre-recorded unless they pause the parade and they cut to this. There's this song and dance number in front of the castle where everybody's wearing all white, the white reindeer.
Oh yeah.
And Goofy's up on top just acting a fool. Like, he's up on like level 2 of the castle, way up high, and they're down on the stage singing and dancing and that whole thing. I don't know, I wasn't that super excited about it, but Goofy does appear out of dry ice at some point from the roof, and he's down on the main stage then. So very cool there.
And then he and Donald are in a sleigh, and it rises about 25 feet up underneath.
It's basically a scissor lift with some Christmassy glittery fabric wrapping it around. Like, it almost looks like silvery shiny stuff. Just
yeah.
It does give us a nice shot of one of the gargoyles on the castle, which I didn't really realize was there.
Yeah.
Oh, when he's up on top.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, that's a fallen rain gargoyle or whatever.
So moving along, this got right to me, right to my memories. I'm looking here. It's about the 27-minute mark or so. We have to make a trip to the MGM studios with our friend Kathy Lee.
And a great flyover with the Earful Tower with the Santa hat on.
Yeah, and
Fantastic.
this was a memory of mine. I don't know if anybody else had it. We were there around Christmas, and we did the backstage, the backlot tour back then. This was a year before, actually. And our tram driver, he told us that our tram tour guide, he told us that the driver of our tram was the one that put the hat on the Earful Tower. Oh. He hoisted it up. And I was like, really? That's very interesting. At 12 years old, I was thinking about that. But so that we moved to Kathy Lee Gifford, and she is the star of the show at MGM, as the guests were. But she was actually filming a real show here, and I curse you guys for ruining it for me once again, because to me, I would have thought 5 years ago she was actually filming a show there called Winter Wonderland. But she walks onto a set, a bustling movie set, TV production set, wardrobes rolling by, the everything's out there, the cue cards, and she says the line, which is so pompous, and she goes, "Look at everybody's so excited to see me," and I was just like, "Gosh, you've got to be kidding me! You can't." So thrilled I'm here. I was like, I guess. So she goes through and they do the whole, like, here's how movies are made, and here's the...
Oh, well, hold on. No, it's not just here's how movies are made. 2 or 3 times in this entire show, they stress that these are how films are actually made.
Yes.
Actually made. They're actually made this way. You're going to go behind the scenes.
Yep.
And learn so much.
And they pushed it, like, even before the episode started. Then they do the pan by, like, a camera is filming the cameraman, and then they pan by him, and then they show the busy set. We get another overhead view as it pans away. Actually, how you're into this sort of thing, it pans right over top of current Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, nice.
Which you can see is just, the old backlot and stuff. Very interesting to think about now, because as you drive down that road currently, you see all the spires and all that stuff sitting there. So, once again, I wasn't blown away by that part. That was just sort of fake now because of you guys. Bill Nye comes back, though, and he starts talking about water and how important water is to our bodies, and he does the science connection. He's standing there in some rain slicks amongst the splash pad. It's that one at EPCOT that's right there, sort of it's if you stand there and you look at that splash pad, you can see Imagination kind of off in the distance right there. It's the one on that main.
That's the one that Rolly designed and
but it wasn't there yet.
Convinced them to install
Back then, it was just part of the bridge. There wasn't a splash pad there, right?
No, he's
on
the
splash pad.
Yeah, he's on it.
That's
and
part of the 93, 94. Because Bill Nye keeps talking about EPCOT 94. That's right.
Yes, and I forgot to say that every mention of EPCOT is let's go to Bill Nye at EPCOT 94, which is just so odd to me. Like I understand what
Fortunately,
the
it only
history
lasted
of it.
2 years.
I just find it weird.
Well, but in the software industry, it lasted about 20.
I just can't believe they just felt like, why did they tack a 94 on the end of it like it's the version of Windows?
Well, it was the idea was every year they were going to EPCOT 95, then EPCOT 96, and they really very early in 96 they did away with it. But the original Innoventions idea was that we're going to update these exhibits, unlike we did in Communicore. We're going to every year there's going to be new stuff for you to come and see, and after 2 years you're like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. So then it just became EPCOT again with no center.
We're good.
So we cut then he introduces Splashtacular.
Yeah.
Now is this a show for my expert historians here? Was this running for a long time at Disney?
Yeah. So what we did find out, work with Ron Logan. So this was a show that was done in Japan, and they brought it from Tokyo Disneyland to Epcot. They spent a bunch of money. Part of it was the guys getting funding to redoing the fountain. So the old fountain, like although the shell of it was there, they killed the old fountain and replaced it with really fancy nozzles. So the same company, Wet Designs, that did the Bellagio, they put those same kind of fountain, nozzles in that fountain, and then built an enormous stage in front of it in order to house the show. And what it turns out, you blow a bunch of water in the air while a bunch of people are on a stage sitting right in front of the water. The stage gets covered with water.
Imagine that.
People can slip and fall, and it's a big... And the show, I don't think, ended up being super popular because it was totally weird.
Yeah.
And this is some of the footage on here really captures it all, in its glory.
Yeah,
and how you have the entire thing recorded that we're going to eventually release. That you actually,
I do.
You shot it in wide with a wide angle lens too.
This has some nice close-ups though.
I wonder if Ron Logan did that show.
He was in charge of it, but he said he was not because it was brought in from Japan. He didn't take direct control of it, so he was not super aware of it. And yes, this is a show that has the infamous cyborg dinosaur that rises up from the bushes.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now, this overhead view. It's right about where Club Cool is or was, and it comes out right over there, and it's they're these Captain EO looking guards are shooting sparks at him, and it's something else.
And then you get the giant inflatable rainbow that comes up on top of the roof of the AT&T lounge. And I love the people dressed up in the giant silver Mickey ears. They can't even move.
Yeah, they're on stilts, I think, in these sort of Mickey ear armor costumes.
Yeah, the chest piece is a Mickey head.
Yeah. And what was funny, because there's not enough room. Are people on the roof too? Oh no, that's just more inflatables on the roof. Man, they loved their inflatables back then. Because there was no place for them to get dressed and change and prep for the show. If you remember where the Expo Robotics exhibit used to be in Communicore,
where Club Cool was.
Where Club Cool, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So once they closed Expo Robotics, they actually turned that into the prep area for the show. So everyone would go down into there and prep for the show and then come out on stage. So that area was closed off while this show went on.
It's quite exciting. And then that's the roof of the lounge on Spaceship Earth where the big inflatable is up there, right? That is something else. I mean, it's You just got to watch it. It's very tough to describe in detail. Just it's more you got to be there to see this train wreck of a show.
And this is really
it's just tough to watch in general.
We'll have to look and see what mine is, but like given all the close-ups, I think this is some of the best footage of Splashtacular that's out there. So I'm glad we have
It's a very
this.
abbreviated version of the show too. We should.
Well, thank goodness.
It's very abbreviated.
So I have the full.
The definitive How Bowers collection will be released in 2020. This will wet your whistle, as they say, and
that's right.
No pun intended. I do love the quote by Mickey, and let's see what this future world fountain can really do. And now it's bulldozed to the ground.
So it just so everybody knows, that ran from November 20th, 93 to June 11th, 94. So, a little over 6 months, barely got 7 months.
So what month was How there filming? Is it an early version or a late version?
No, I have the exact date. If you give me a second here.
I was very meticulous about trying to write down the dates that I recorded things.
Yep. It was May 15th, 1994.
Oh, I remember.
Okay, so we got a late run when it's either at its best or its worst because they don't care anymore. They heard it was closing.
You got about 28 days left on it here.
Hell with it. Don't even blow the inflatable up. All right. Well, that was a great little touch there of Splashtacular. I was mentioning before about the All-Star. They do give us a preview of the original All-Star Sports model, and they show close-ups of the scale model. We see the basketball area, the big football helmets. Joan London's talking about how it's just amazing and everything's so larger than life. And they also give us a preview of the Wilderness Lodge model. Regis talks about that one. He says it's based on the national parks and all that good stuff. So very cool to see those models up close and on TV there. Lots of promotion, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
So then we go to I think one of the cheesiest parts of the show.
This is terrible.
Regis decides he is going to show us something super exciting that's coming next, and he goes basically to a garage door that has a sign affixed to it that says the Walt Disney World Future Projects Area, which I don't really think this exists, this garage door with this thing on it, but it opens up. He walks in and he's basically tells you, you got to have special access to get in here, and
it's all in go away green too, so it's got to be like some backstage door somewhere.
Yeah, so he's walking through and correct me if I'm wrong, he basically just finds the elevator. He walks up to an elevator door. And he's like, well, I don't know if I should go in here, but what do you think? And then he goes, it doesn't look too scary. Why not? And it's styled after the Tower of Terror elevator. If you've been on that, you kind of know. He's in there, and he's like, it doesn't seem too bad. And then all of a sudden, he turns black and white. It's like he is transported to the Tower of Terror, and he is that. Then from there, it drops. The whole thing's going crazy. He's yelling, screaming. He's spinning. They also do a Rod Serling voice there, of the I'm not sure if it's like the fake guy. It's got to be the fake guy, but I was trying to think, is this the voice of the guy that did the ride? Did they get him? How they re-recorded for the actual ride and they dubbed it over the actual video? I wasn't sure, but either way, he then gets out and he's smashed down vertically, so he's shorter and he's wider and his voice is different, and then he makes a joke about how he has to go get some suits altered. I just couldn't help but think you couldn't get any worse than that preview of Tower of Terror that used to be on the vacation planning videos, where they'd show the kids getting on the elevator and the Mickey ears fly through the tower. Right. This is way worse. Like that is like, I think that's what sparked the Regis video is what sparked their idea for the promo video, and that's an improved version of this. But it was horrible. It's absolutely horrible, and it gives you no sense of what the ride actually is.
I love that the numbers on the elevator go to 12, and then there's just like this written in 13.
It's like somebody took lipstick and wrote 13 after the 12. Like it doesn't even spin that far, but the needle does for some reason spin full clock 360s around as he's falling down. They play the Twilight Zone music. He falls through the stars, the whole thing. But that is his take on Tower of Terror. And get excited, Joan, because it's coming. 94, right. It's coming.
Now, Hal, I've got a question for you too. They do pan to some a lot of times they talk about the live blimp shots, and there's some live footage provided that day by the Blockbuster.
Yes,
blimp.
I have this written down. The Blockbuster blimp is there.
Blockbuster blimp. So, and for those of you young ones out there, Blockbuster Video was a rental store where you could rent these things called videotapes, which predated DVDs. Take them home, watch a movie. But how do you know of what the connection there was to Blockbuster and Disney, or was it just, hey, we need the blimp, we'll throw it in there, and we'll talk about it. Changed a little bit in 1994.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
I do have a news story here. It says that it made its first debut in 1993 at a nationally televised game between the Florida Marlins and the Colorado Rockies down there, and it used to be the former Virgin Airways blimp.
So, Wayne Huizinga, I think that was his name, was the owner of Blockbuster, and he was based out of Miami. So it could have just been, it's a Florida thing. So, they called someone on the phone and got access to it.
Well, it was called Virgin Lightships, and they were based out of Orlando, it says. So there you go.
There we go.
Well, I thought it was going to the Contemporary to me.
It could have been.
If we can get the Goodyear blimp and that thing together, bam.
All right, so after Regis excites us with that, and we see the blimp here and there, we move on to the Aladdin Parade, the Grand Caravan Parade, I believe that's what it's called.
Well, isn't it Aladdin's Royal Caravan?
I don't know. Something, yeah. They push this hard because basically it's the parade of the time for MGM. I mean, they cycled through a few different parades. This one ran for roughly 3 years. To me, it was just the pretty normal parade. It wasn't like anything extra special. They just filmed this and showed it on TV. The one thing I learned from this, and you guys could tell me if this is completely false or something that maybe I'm teaching you something that's the odds are that's not true. They had these big camels in the parade, rolling by, big gold camels, and I learned, if this is true, that one of those camels is what is now in Adventureland at the Magic Kingdom.
That's
sitting
correct.
There
That's correct. By Aladdin's magic carpets. Yeah.
And it lived someplace else before that.
Yes.
If you know.
I don't. I forget.
So in front of at some point, the Soundstage restaurant where the big business set was rethemed to Aladdin, and two of the camels sat out front of that. As a marquee to draw you
so Aladdin has Prince Ali has 75 golden camels, so he's got some to spare, according to the song.
Yes.
Oh wow, there's a genie cam. Like they put a camera on the float that has a genie on it. That was a pretty neat parade, though. They had some really good. They had like a whole bunch of genies because he was magical, and I remember there was this one genie that would like split in half, like. I think it was like a person. There was one that walked on his hands, but they just had a person in the costume walking on his feet, but the costume was upside down. And there were a couple that would like do some unique and different things. And I don't know if it's in here, but it ended with like Jafar pushing a honey bucket with and if a honey bucket is like that thing that they pick up the horse poop in at the end of parades. And then there was a speaker inside, and Iago would make comments about wanting to be let out, and like everyone would boo and hiss Jafar as he walked by.
Of course. So that was the Aladdin parade. I don't know. I wasn't too thrilled. It was cool though. But coming up at about the 48 minute mark, we do have the Ninja Turtles making their appearance. This was a big hit for me at the ripe old age of 10. Now, these Ninja Turtle walk-around characters were more based on the cartoon and not like the movie of the day. They pulled up in the turtle van, and they, obviously threw out some cowabungas, some fake ninja moves, and then they move on to sing Jingle Bell Rock, as Ninja Turtles do.
Now, this was some of the first outside Disney IP that was really brought into the parks too, if I recall. I remember hearing about it for the first time, going,
yeah, I remember.
It was always a big photo op, and they'd give you the thumbs up in the photo, and you're like, yeah, I met the Ninja Turtles. As a kid, I will say it made Disney, we'll say, quote unquote, cool as a 10-year-old kid. You're like, all right, yeah, I like the Ninja Turtles and I can see them at Disney. It was like an extra, like, I'll say, as a 10-year-old kid who likes sports and that sort of stuff, Mickey he was cool, but he wasn't as Ninja Turtle cool at that era. So it definitely, I don't know, it added something to it for me. I feel like we met him once. So we go from there. We have some various montages, some more Aladdin Parade, and then one of my favorite parts of the whole thing, Barbie. As who's our Barbie, our resident fan that's a Barbie expert?
Tammy Tucky.
As I was watching this, I was like, I don't even want to touch this because she's going to be cursing at me the whole time she listens to the episode. But the Barbie is there with the whole crew. Ken's there, everybody's there, and my goodness, what a production to have Barbie there. What's your guys' take on the whole Barbie thing?
Well, she was like the ambassador of friendship for the world, which is why she was at EPCOT Center. And if you remember...
And because Mattel had a sponsorship deal.
Exactly.
It's a stretch.
That's right.
Yeah. That was the deal. Mattel and Disney had a corporate sponsorship deal.
They sponsored the Small World, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So that's how they thought really hard about where Barbie would fit into Walt Disney World, so it wasn't odd, and they chose Epcot and have her to be an international ambassador of friendship.
To be specific, it was the American pavilion.
That's true. That's very true.
And she's an American icon, and I mean, I'm not defending this. I'm explaining, not defending.
You love it. Admit it. No.
I have never sat through it and will go to my grave never having sat through it.
Tammy, that means you're coming on as a special guest to do that episode.
But
she will be happy to do a 7-part series. She's interviewed
really?
all the people who were in the stage show. Like you can listen to the interviews with the people who played Barbie.
I saw it and I go, man, there's definitely pros out there that Tammy's one of them for sure. So we have another part on Main Street with Chip and Dale and some baking. We have the walk around gingerbread cookies and that whole thing. We then go back to Bill Nye at Epcot. He's in Morocco talking about cultures and languages and the science connection. And he walks into a Moroccan shop and speaks Moroccan. Then he just segues beautifully into... here to sing about culture is John Davidson, and then we have John Davidson. I've never heard of this guy till now.
Oh, come on!
Wow.
I'm sorry, I never had.
At the time, he was the host of what did he host at that point?
The Hollywood Squares.
That's right. And he was That's Incredible in the 80s. He was doing That's Incredible.
Right. Oh, yeah, That's Incredible. That was quite
But
a
his
show.
Disney connection was being one of the stars of The Happiest Millionaire.
Happiest Millionaire with Leslie Ann
where
Warren.
He sang a fantastic song about Detroit.
Yes.
And
come on.
And who has also been interviewed by Tammy Tucky on the Tiara Talk show. So you can listen to interviews with all those people if you're interested.
No, JT, as a young man, he had the passion to be a car designer. And where do you go if you want to be you go to Detroit.
Detroit, yeah, that's where...
There's this big song about Detroit.
The Sherman Brothers Detroit song, absolutely.
You're gonna have to check that out.
I like that he has a scarf on in Florida, too. That's...
Yeah.
Then we go...
It's quite the head of hair, too.
It is. It's very, very, very thick. And
still is
wavy.
today. If you... Yeah.
Is it
it's just silver now.
So we do a few laps around World Showcase, some countries, as far as the, they sort of speak in their language. They give you a little something for each place. We got the Germans, the Norway, all that stuff is there. Just to kind of give, that sticking with that culture concept. And then Goofy comes back as Santa on the sleigh. We start wrapping up here as we get to the end. But... not to be outdone, not to be anything, we have a appearance by the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" in front of a fireplace there. It's like this isn't live, I take it, but they cut to a recording of him reading it to some children, and then we end. He goes right to Santa Claus here, coming down Main Street. Not too bad of a float. He's up high on the tall float there. We've got some song and dance in front of him. Overall, I give this an 8.5 out of 10 because we do wrap up with a massive singing number with tons of children in front of the fountains here. They all have the matching white shirt, the candy cane scarf, and the Santa hat. Children sing in unison to take us home. And then we end
one
it.
wish this Christmas, it would be for
Yeah.
all the children of the world.
Yes.
To join hands.
And we end on Main Street with all the hosts and everybody there waving. But it almost does. You know, I don't believe you, but I do believe you that it's live because there's no Kathy Lee there. She did not catch the Blue Flag bus or whichever one from the studios back to Main Street.
I bet you all her stuff was, she was all pre-recorded.
She's definitely not there. So she, they definitely didn't rush anybody over. Bill Nye didn't even end up back on Main Street. So the Main Street part, I'd say, was the only live part. But that's my take on it.
You mean the part where Regis was shrunk down into a little size wasn't live?
Yeah.
I love the old school Walt Disney World Resorts logo when the resorts were something separate in a way.
They had the D with the head in it and the.
No. I posted it in our chat here. Take a look at it.
It's very fancy.
Oh, that.
Yeah, very, very fan. Of course, they show the.
I've seen that on brochures before too. So.
Well, let's stay in 1993, but we're going to change channels because that show that we just watched, the parade, would have been 2 hours with commercials. So we've got it cut down to an hour and a half for a viewing pleasure. And I think any of these you could put on in the background as you're celebrating this Christmas. But Brian, you're going to take us through our other one, which is the second one here out of 3, a musical Christmas at Walt Disney World. And this one's interesting as well, to say
That's
the least.
right, Todd.
And
you can't just have any old Christmas at Walt Disney World and a live Christmas Day parade. You have to have a musical Christmas at Walt Disney World. And this was a 1-hour program, aired on the Disney Channel on Saturday night, December 18th, 1993. So Michael Eisner welcomes you from the streets of Main Street. To the musical Christmas at Walt Disney World. Introduces himself as the head of the Walt Disney Company, and this is their little Christmas gift to you as a musical Christmas at Walt Disney World. He has a very, very small role, but he's all bundled up. Hosted by Robert Urich, an actor, the late Robert Urich, who at that time would have been famous for 2 things. His drama on the ABC network called Spencer for Hire, where he was a sleuth who solved problems. You hired him to take care of things for you and solve your mysteries. And he also was the host of National Geographic Explorer on the Discovery Channel, which in the days back when your cable only had like 40 channels, the Discovery Channel's National Geographic Explorer was one of those things that you watch, just like A&E's Biography and things that kind of fade into the background now, but and now they have their own channel, right? Nat Geo has its own channel, and Biography has its own channel. Yes.
And Disney Channel's National
One of the other
Geographic,
interesting things about the program was it was directed by Jeff Margolis, and if you take a look at his credits, he specializes in these 1 hour, 2 hour specials and live events like the Emmy Awards and the American Music Awards and things like that. So this is the only thing that he did for Disney, like the only special he did like this. And I bring it up because the production value in this is extremely interesting. So the show opens with a lushly landscaped hub in front of the castle featuring Kathy Lee Gifford singing that Christmas classic, When You Wish Upon a Star, which is in anybody's Christmas playlist. For those of you who listened to our prior section here on the parade, you know that she was the host of Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. Regis does not appear in this particular program. And
Brian, it could have been if instead of When You Wish Upon a Star. I remember in one of the last year's Christmas episode we talked about the song from
Don't Get Me Started.
The Sound of
Don't
Music
Get Me
that has
Started.
now become a Christmas song that doesn't even
Exactly.
every time I hear it, I think of you.
My favorite
Brian,
things is not a Christmas song. The Peanuts theme song is not a Christmas song. Like they have nothing to do with winter because we've now accepted that snow, winter, sleigh bells, those things are acceptable Christmas songs.
I kind of understand the Peanuts thing in only that it's a mistake, because there's the ice skating song, which I completely from the Peanuts Christmas special that I 100% like equate with Christmas time. Okay. But like not the main theme, not Linus and Lucy. That I did. I just heard that on a Christmas radio station.
It's on every day.
Like, why is this on? Yeah. Yeah, the song Skating from that special is 100% wintry to me, but I don't understand the whole Linus and Lucy thing. That's nuts. I'll tell you what else is missing from the shot there. It's the Walt Partner statue.
It's not there yet, because 95 it came.
Yeah. So there's a topiary of Mickey and Minnie standing there holding hands, and like they have waving hands. So it was an electrified topiary.
So Robert Urich then introduces Trisha Yearwood. She's the next person that sings. And Trisha Yearwood, a country music singer, she sings The Most Wonderful Time of the Year and I Wish It Could Be Christmas Forever, which is a Perry Como standard that I don't hear played a lot anymore, but back then a certain segment of the audience would have been familiar with the song. But hang on. She is on a very, very snow-dressed Center Street and Main Street, USA. Like, you cannot imagine. You got to rush to your TV right now, click on the link in our show notes, and watch these things. They must have pumped so much fake, and it's not fake snow. It's actual packed, like they shot, a snow machine on here and packed like the whole set of Center Street with real actual snow that is there. Because you can see it's all melting. I mean, the ground's all wet, and it is amazing. And that is a recurring theme throughout the production.
And is it East Center Street or West Center Street?
I wasn't going to guess, but I think it is the one they did away with.
Tell.
But I kept looking at it, and I was trying to make the sign out, but the video has lost just enough clarity that I couldn't really make out whether I was seeing the jewelry store or what are you seeing?
So I think it's west, because in the background when you're far away, you can see the lights of the Art Corner sign, like up against, and there weren't lights on the other side because it was the bicycle shop and the barber shop. So,
and the camera trickery is done well, that it keeps her in there, but it looks like she's walking a mile down the street.
She just keeps walking around. Yeah, I mean the whole thing, and she's. But I mean, when I tell you they set this thing up, it is. There's a guy roasting chestnuts, and there's these merchants and shoppers walking by, and it's all. I mean, if you've been in the area, it's like a 70-foot section. I mean, it's not a very, very big set to be shooting on, but they use the space very well. But everybody's bundled up, and
there's one part though where she does trip on a white mat and it curls
but
back,
but
which
you
is
know,
pretty funny.
Like. So this broadcast in December. So at best they were doing it. They did it overnight. It's obvious because it's nighttime and the whole place is empty. So they filmed it overnight one night, in the middle of the night. But it would be like November. So the likelihood is they were filming it out there in like 70-degree weather and walking around in these coats. And so at the conclusion of Trisha Yearwood's appearance, they then move on to Peebo Bryson. And Peebo Peebo Bryson is singing Silent Night in a very, very yellow jacket on a very empty Main Street, because, as I said, they did this overnight. But the yellow really jumps out, because the whole show is white coats, red plaid, the plaid scarf. Everybody's in their Christmas attire, their reds, their greens, and outdoor blacks, Victorian blacks, and then white stuff. And all of a sudden, Peebo Bryson's there, like yellow, man, like French's mustard yellow.
But here's the thing. So as opposite of the other one. It's like the costuming here is actually spot on because he stands out from the background. It's like it gives him contrast. Like these people knew what they were doing.
Yeah, Trisha's kind of lost in the white forest,
and you can tell they put like that,
so you can't see her.
Like that Vaseline lens effect on Trisha Yearwood's one, where it's like whenever Saturday Night Live used to put somebody playing Barbra Streisand on screen, they'd always put that sheen on there.
It's all soft,
So Peebo Bryson, and I will talk a little bit about why Peebo's there when I get to his second appearance. But we finally move out of the Magic Kingdom to New York Street in Disney MGM Studios, where our host, Robert Urich, gives us a peek into movie making, because they made movies there. They actually make movies. And then Robert Urich sends you to France in World Showcase to hear Andy Williams, Mr. Christmas there. Andy Williams singing. First, he walks through the France Pavilion, starting outside, and just wanders into Chefs de France like he's a nightly regular. And like, hey, Andy, And then he sings I'll Be Home for Christmas as they alternately shoot him from inside the restaurant and outside as he's looking out the window like a lost kid who was left behind by his parents. It's a very odd thing. And they've like frosted the windows. And again, they have packed the French pavilion with snow, like actual snow machine snow all over the place. It's fascinating.
When he sings, it looks like a denture commercial.
Some of the lip syncing isn't quite on. I have that a little later. Like you can see on some of these songs, like they're just a little bit off. So they send you back to the Magic Kingdom at Center Street, and Robert Urich is there being served some wassail, but while from a street cart, while reading from a Christmas Carol. And then he sends you to the UK Pavilion, which he calls the English Pavilion. So sorry, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. And that's where Natalie Cole, Nat King Cole's daughter, sings the Christmas song, which was her father's famous song, while a vendor is actually roasting chestnuts there. My side note, I know I've mentioned it on previous Christmas episodes. They used to sell the roasted chestnuts at the Osborne Lights in the Disney MGM Studios. Worst things I've ever tasted in my life. Like, I can't believe they wrote a whole song about these things. It's like, it was awful. I remember like, this is awful. It's like, I don't know how squirrels live on this stuff. So there's this, they really did this up nice. And, the UK Pavilion has that whole back area. So there's a lot to kind of shoot around, but there are handsome cabs, lots of snow, like a fair amount of people, like extras milling about in the background, moving in and out of the different shops and just passing people on the street and doffing their little Victorian caps, and chimney sweeps walking by with their chimneys. Like the whole thing is like expertly done. So Natalie Cole finishes singing that, and Urich's next intro is, and I have to ask about this, Hal, because I'm just like brain fart. Was there before the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique now, right? Or was there a toy store inside the castle? Okay.
There was. So right where the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is now, it was Tinkerbell Toy Shop.
So he is standing outside of there, introducing Lea Salonga and Peebo Bryson to sing A Whole New World from the balcony behind Cinderella's royal table that you never knew was there, because we're never up there and you never see anybody on it, but they are standing out on this balcony that exists between the windows for Cinderella's royal table and the balustrade that runs along the outside of the building. So they stand up there. It's a really interesting mix. Lea Salonga was Princess Jasmine's singing voice in the movie. So she sang it in the movie with Brad Kane, A Whole New World, in the Aladdin movie. But the pop music soundtrack version was Peebo Bryson and Regina Belle. So what they did is they mixed it. You got Peebo Bryson from the pop music version, and Lea Salonga from the soundtrack. And so their duet is out there. And Lea Salonga, by the way, also performed all of Mulan's singing parts in that movie a couple years later.
She was known at the time too. That was her big for doing Miss Saigon on Broadway, and then she went to do Les Miserables after that too in around '93. So she's definitely
so back to Robert Urich, who now decides to give us his own Christmas gift by singing himself. He sings "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear" from New York Street next to a burning trash can, because nothing says New York Street like a burning trash can.
It could have been on the LIE.
And then from Santa's Tree Lot on New York Street, he sends us to the German pavilion, where Kathy Lee Gifford celebrates the country that gave us the Christmas tree. And I know I've mentioned the snow in the UK and the snow on Center Street. All of the snow in the world is in the German pavilion. In this, like they must have been like the last thing they were shooting, and we're like, let's just use all the snow that we have in the machine, because it's just like it was a blizzard in the German pavilion.
She looks oddly thin in that too. She's very
well. We
very
will send her a cheeseburger and tell her to bulk up. She sings.
And how, just so you know, your recording that we have to fix the audio, but right about the 35-minute mark, News 40 kicks in with the high school state final game. Manatee is behind 28, Miami Southridge 56 at the end.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So
Kathy Lee has shrunk down to like 1/3 of the size.
So Kathy Lee Gifford sings the Christmas waltz while having a nice chat with a horse that she feeds treats to. So she's like singing this song and just like giving a handful of oats to this horse that's in the German pavilion, because, the Germans pre-Volkswagen, I guess, had horses that they got around on. And we go to the American Adventure Pavilion, where gospel music's most awarded artist, Stephen Curtis Chapman, joins the Voices of Liberty to sing "O Come All Ye Faithful," right there in the rotunda of the American Adventure, surrounded by a dangerous amount of candles. So we've gone from snow to this thing could go up like a tinderbox any second, because there must be 200 candles around them.
It looks like the set of Wrapped Around Your Finger by the Police.
And then they move down to the Voices of Liberty singing "Deck the Halls," where he eventually joins them. And there's more candles down there, like just all around the Voices of Liberty. It really is something to see. It's quite the contrast from the snow.
A little known fact: all those in costume are French firefighters.
So when they finish that run, Mickey Mouse finally shows up on Main Street. He wishes you peace, good health, and happiness. He then joins a large Christmas children's choir under the town square Christmas tree. They're all holding unlit candles. And so you're watching them hold these unlit candles as they sing that Christmas classic, "A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes." So you guys all think that was like a 2000s invention where Disney would like drop them songs in there in inappropriate places in shameless self-promotion. No, in 1993 it was alive and well. We moved into Winter Wonderland. That's and then right. Joy to the World. And so they didn't have like all the celebrities join the kids and Mickey in Town Square, because obviously all the celebrities were there on different nights filming different parts. They weren't all there. So what happens is they start singing Joy to the World, and then they would cut to videos of the different celebrities taking a different section, like a different verse of Joy to the World, often but usually not lip-syncing their parts correctly.
Oh, so Brian, I can tell you why the candles aren't lit. They're actually light bulbs. They're like stage candles with electric light bulbs in them, and they were used in the processional for the old like Christmas processional they would do up Main Street, so that way nobody got burned.
Stage magic.
It is.
Safety first.
If you have roughly 45 minutes, This is just the kind of cheesy seasonal special that was a part of the Christmas season since they started doing cheesy Christmas specials in the 1950s when television kind of rose. I really feel like they don't do them that much anymore. It's all kind of polished and promo-y and not pretty. But back, I mean, you guys remember when we were kids, aside from Rudolph and all that stuff, is like every year there was this year, like if this year was 20 years ago, there'd be like the Lizzo Christmas special and whoever's famous and like having a good year at the time, all of a sudden there would be that person. And then there would be, hey, remember this person who used to be famous 15 years ago? Like, here's all of a sudden the Jenny Garth Christmas special. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, and it would always be an hour on like a Saturday night or some Christmas week. And they would like various celebrities. It was like a variety show. And I don't really think they do that stuff much anymore. But
it's an interesting contrast because today now instead of doing the parades, it's like they do those. They do the Christmas show with a lot of musical entertainment, but it's all more teen and young adult focused.
And it's not Christmas music a lot of time. Like
artists.
It's a Christmas backdrop, but they're performing their hits. And
exactly,
like, back then it was always like, oh, hey, look at this. Mickey Rooney's on here singing the night, Santa Claus is coming to town.
Very interesting. Well, then I guess we will transition to 1995.
I'm sure they made great advances, Howard, between JT and my thing in 93 and yours in 95.
I'm like, well,
I noticed a lot of similarities. The formula didn't change much.
Yeah, for sure. So we're back with Regis and Joan London once again. It's 1995. There are some new things in the Magic Kingdom to highlight, but yeah, you're right, Todd. They actually really went to the playbook and just kind of did a lot of the same stuff that they did in that earlier parade, the 93. A lot of the floats and stuff are exactly the same floats. A lot of the location, it's very, very similar. So,
and the whole setup, instead of Robbie Benson, you have J.D. Roth now, who, again, an annoying person just coming in like
right. So I mean, that's
of the parade, but that's how down to it's like. Oh, Robbie Benson's on it. We'll put J.D. Roth. Oh, if you don't know who he was.
I'll get into that. I got that. But yeah, it is that formative. Like, there's the color commentary of the two people up in the booth above the parade, and then some people interviewing folks, down on the parade route, and some behind the scenes stuff. So yeah.
Yep.
It's really all kind of cut from the same cloth. So, the 1995 parade. So what was the big movie that came out in 1995? Ooh. I see Todd. I see a hand, Todd.
Toy Story.
That's right, Toy Story. So we open up with this shtick with Buzz and Woody trying to take over hosting the Christmas parade, which what's his name? Regis. Regis is not so happy about that.
It doesn't sound like a real Buzz and Woody. It's definitely not Tim Allen.
No. Tim Allen. So this is the time period when like Tim Allen and Tom Hanks would not do any of the stuff other than the movie. So if there was a TV special or a CD-ROM game or something, it's like Tom Hanks would like throw it to his brother to do. Which is for real. It's like his brother would do all the voice of Woody in like any thing that Tom Hanks in. I don't know who they got for Buzz, but like it's not Tim Allen. But they have these long speaking parts where you're like, that's not Buzz and Woody.
It kind of sounds like drunk Buzz.
Yeah. So and I noticed they still had the garland over Main Street during this special. So I don't know, Brian, when they took down the elaborate like garland with the stuff over Main Street. You know how they used to have
all the way up until they started Festival of Fantasy Parade in 2014. That's because the dragon can't fit underneath the garland. That's why they had to take it down. So once they started Festival of Fantasy, they switched to those wreaths, which I actually prefer.
Okay, so it's after that shtick, they go to a big musical number with floats parked on Town Square. And they have this big Christmas song, and Maleficent and Jafar take over the float and sing this song, "We're Getting Nothing for Christmas," which, because they're villains. And then, and then in the middle of this number, like a small boy stops and yells, "Wait a minute, this is supposed to be Christmas." And he gives them presents, and they're like, "Oh, we got Christmas presents," and then they walk off. So it's very, very awkward. So here's your lineup for this Christmas parade. It's Regis Philbin and Joan London, of course, from the hit TV show Boy Meets World, which I never saw, but I guess that must have been a Disney Channel show, right? Because I'm just the wrong age. Ben Savage and Ryder Strong. So that's some good names.
That was
and then
what's his name's brother, right? From Fred Savage's younger brother.
Ben Savage.
Fred Savage's younger brother.
Savage. So that was an ABC show. That's why they got the connection there with Disney. So that's why it was on ABC originally.
Randy Savage.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was on for 7 seasons, believe it or not, from 93 to 99.
And then so doing the doing the on the street and the behind the scenes are J.D. Roth and Brianne Leary from Walt Disney World Inside Out, which was a Disney Channel show.
Right.
Now, I remember the monthly version of the show that was hosted by Scott Harrett, which ran from 1994 to 1995. But apparently at the May of 1995, they stopped doing that version and they started doing like a weekly version and had these two people as the host of the show. So the show actually didn't debut until I think January, like after this. So this was kind of like your first introduction to these folks. And then that weekly version of the show started in January. So people had no idea who they were when the show started, and I don't know if they cared after it was done. And then for musical entertainment, we have Jodie Benson, who of course was the Little Mermaid. Richard White, who you would not recognize like walking down the street if you saw him, who is Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. And then Brad Kane from Aladdin, who is another person that like if you just saw him, you probably would not know who he was. And JT, this one was also brought to you by Kissimmee St. Cloud and Burger King, because I think they probably had before the McDonald's deal, I think Disney and Burger King had the relationship, because I think Burger King did the 25th anniversary toys where you could get like the floats in their kids' meals. And I noticed that like every once in a while they would have like the text live show up like superimposed on the screen. So then I'm with you, JT. I'm wondering at what point was it what parts were live and what parts weren't live and what was pre-recorded, and because they pop back and forth between so many places.
I would guess most of the parade shots were live. You know, like
probably.
That obviously the canned stuff where Regis is on the Tower of Terror or somebody's singing from the balcony over the castle or something, that some of that would have been pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Live on tape.
So let's get right.
And also Burger King did the 20th anniversary. They had that that calendar that they gave away for free in 91, 92. McDonald's was in by the 25th because they had the castle cake glasses and all that other kind of stuff.
Oh, that's right. Thank you then. Okay, so the excitement starts with the West Orange High School marching band playing Jingle Bells, and they do like the full song. So it's just a full on marching band, and then this is kind of interesting. A family gets pulled out, and they're wearing custom matching T-shirts.
Yeah, I made a note of this too. I mean, it's like they're way ahead of their time.
They are. They're like pioneers, weren't they? That's amazing. And then, and that's during where JD and Brienne are like goofing around. JD calls Brienne. She's going to go get the scoop on. Does anyone get that reference? Because I just sat there like making that like Tom and Jerry, like blinking boink, boink sound, like not understanding. Then we have the Wooden Soldier unit. Doing a full version of Toyland and March of the Wooden Soldiers from Babes in Toyland. I mean, the one thing I have to say, like, I found watching the show very painful, and I think when by the time I got done, I would probably sit with some attention to the one that Brian watched, but I realized watching this one, these shows were probably best served as just background like while you're opening up Christmas presents, and like you might glance up and notice something going on, but like this for 2 hours, oh my gosh. Like if you actually sat down and just watched this intently for 2 hours, I don't think you would be able to handle it.
I remember as a kid when we did put them on, I was, just as I would do now, I was waiting to see the new attraction and then, what are they going to announce? So that was the only thing I was interested in. What things are coming. So yeah, I know.
Really, it
background
came on,
noise.
I think it was it 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? I forget. I think
I want to say 9. I want to say it was 9 to 11.
That sounds about
right.
By
that point, like kids had woken their parents up at like 5:30 in the morning. You had opened all your presents. You had breakfast. You might have been getting dressed for church or going the night before. Like you just wanted to sit there and you threw it on in the background. You're playing with the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip while the parade's on in the background. And I mean, I remember watching it. And at that time, I was in my 20s. But I mean, I remember sitting and having it on the TV. We always put the Disney parade on.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I mean, we still by habit want to turn it on, and then like, oh, it's not the parade anymore. Oops. So, all right. So Jones says the Magic Kingdom is at capacity, and they're not letting anybody else in. So that would have been 9:30 in the morning, 1995. So I think that kind of shows you how things escalated. Because I remember going Christmas Day in the 80s, and it was like a ghost town. But this parade really did bring people in. Yeah, to the point now where it's like, not only is Christmas Day packed, but like all the days, like everyone knows when they're filming the show, and like the Magic Kingdom is packed on all those days on the lead up to the shows as well. And now they're shooting them in November, where before at least they were shooting this earlier in December.
It used to be the
together.
first week of December. It used to be like the 6th, 7th, 8th of December. Now it really is like they do the first Christmas party like the 7th of November, and by the next week they're shooting segments of the the performances for the parade and all.
Yeah, I guess more lead time is fine, so it's, good for them. It's not quite so crazy. Regis Philbin mentions, so again, getting into the Toy Story thing, Regis Philbin talks about that he played with Mr. Potato Head, but he used a real potato. And then Brienne quickly walks through the backstage of the new Toy Story parade, which will figure prominently later on.
Should we note that the original Mr. Potato Head, you did use a real potato? Like they sold you the pieces to put inside of a real potato.
You just got a box of parts.
That was it. Like that was the original Mr. Potato Head. It's like a bag of glass that somebody sold you. Like, you stick it with a potato.
It had actually like really pointy metal things that you would shove in, right?
Yes, it was like it's not at all safe. It was like Johnny's space bag. It's a plastic. It's just a plastic bag.
Johnny's Space Commander mask. This toy's safe. This toy's fine.
Johnny Switchblade Adventure Punk.
That's right, Johnny's.
Say Ken takes a knife or Barbie gets cut.
Yeah, look up Irving Mainway from Saturday Night Live in the mid-'70s, and you'll see Dan Aykroyd.
You'll get all the ancient references we're making.
Yeah. So...
Interesting thing, Irving Mainway. So I don't know if you guys it's up here in New England and into Canada is and Dan Aykroyd's Canadian. Irving is the gas station. Mainway is the name of the store inside the gas station. So that's where Irving Mainway came from.
And we get a bunch of aerial shots, and this time it's being done by the MetLife blimp.
Yeah, they ditched Blockbuster. What happened?
Yeah, that was 89. But yeah, so the MetLife blimp was there, and the MetLife blimp is called Snoopy One. And they actually showed it this time because, MetLife was a sponsor. And then we cut to everyone's favorite Roger Rabbit. Because nothing says Christmas like Roger Rabbit. On a circus train float singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, followed by a clown band. And Regis Philbin...
This part is scary.
And Regis Philbin says, crowd loves them. And I'm in a very unconvincing manner as he's talking about the clown band.
There's Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls that come through at this point too, and they're just kind of flopped over like dead.
Yeah, it's something. It's
horrible.
Really something. And Joan London's daughter, like apparently her daughters would show up on the parade in different roles over the course of time. So this year, Joan London's daughter is dancing in the parade as a ballerina. Because now she's old enough that she can actually, perform as part of the parade. But yeah, I thought I did notice what I thought was interesting. like all these characters, they have full songs that are made either specifically for the parade or, you know, for this broadcast. So it's like when Chip and Dale are singing, it's like, and when Roger Rabbit's singing, like he's singing this full song. They're not just like in there. It's like they're actually integrated as part of the show. So someone spent some time and care to put that together.
I will say in one of these clips of those clowns how one of them was holding and shooting the crowd with a Super Soaker 50, which I had. It was the neon green Super Soaker squirt gun.
Nice.
That's right.
That's awesome. So the way that this seemed to be set up is like, so they had the parade, you know, that they would shoot, you know, down on Main Street, kind of around like the Magic Shop area or in Town Square. And then they would have floats stop in front of the castle and they would shoot bits there. So the first bit that they go to is Richard White, the voice of Gaston, lip syncing his section of Belle. So like they roll in on a float and they cut out the whole first section with Belle singing, you know, Little Town, It's a Quiet Village. And they start with like LeFou and him. And what I found really strange is like the townsfolk and the other people they're all dressed in their Beauty and the Beast costumes from the live stage show. And he's just in like modern street clothes with a red sweater on, hanging out amongst them.
It's horrible. It looks like he was in the crowd of the Christmas parade and he just hopped on and started singing his Gaston.
I noticed the same exact thing, and he just stuck out like a sore thumb.
It's very strange, and like you said, the difference between costume and wardrobe. So, and then the song transitions to Gaston for like a big finish, but it just seems weird. It just like the production value there is lost because of it. I don't know. It's strange. Then Regis and Joan introduced the Disney Institute, and Regis, who apparently was there the week before, like can't even read the cue card to like get the word Disney Institute out. He kind of trips on it. So maybe that part was live because they certainly didn't edit it. And then they talk about how Regis was teaching a class there the week before in television production. And I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to get a class from Regis Philbin in TV production. Although he probably knows a lot. And Joan London says instead of giving classes there, she took classes there. So you get a nice montage of the Disney Institute, which was newly opened. Is that right, JT, that year, 1995? That was like the new...
It was right around then.
February or something of that year, of 90.
So that was
95.
the new destination of where Saratoga Springs is today, the former Lake Buena Vista golf resort. Got transformed into the Disney Institute, where you could... So Michael Eisner, I think the story is, Brian, like found out about how you could go on vacation places and learn how to do stuff, like get classes from chefs and things. So he's like, hey, let's do this at Walt Disney World. That's a great idea.
Retreats and clients, and it's all about, you know, that with the hotels, he had spaces to fill. So he wanted to bring big conferences and conventions and people down there to you know, you're coming to learn how to be a better manager in your business and learn Disney's trade secrets. But while you're here, your wife and kids can go to the park. Your husband and kids can go to the park. And that was the part of the whole thing.
The Disney Institute actually still exists today from a corporate perspective. They have advisory services, professional development courses. Company I previously worked for actually sent a lot of our management, executive level management, down to help design our own quality of service and approach to working with clients. So it's still there, but just in a different incarnation. So they're actually training other companies out there on how to be successful with customer success, which is interesting. So that's where the Disney Institute went after. It wasn't any longer something that the general public.
Gotcha. So Joan takes a class in animation, and they show her going over and she's doing a bouncing ball, and she gets to shoot her pencil test on the little fancy computer thing. Then she goes out in a canoe on an alligator watch excursion, and actually
this is not good publicity.
Like, in hindsight, yeah, they wouldn't do this today, but she actually gets very close to an alligator. Does that thing that alligators do, where they just kind of like dart off in the water and like make a big splash, and she mildly freaks out and then plays it off like she's not scared. And then she takes a mountain climbing class and she scales Big Thunder Mountain. No, I'm kidding. They have a rock climbing wall there.
That was always the money shot of the Disney Institute, was the rock climbing wall. Like, and they showed like, you know, a 50-year-old mom up there, and she camera pans to her and she looks and goes, "I can't believe I'm doing this." And then that was the promo for the Institute.
So were fake rock climbing walls, was that like a newer thing?
No, but it was always, to me, like, it was the hook. Like, you can do things that you can't do anywhere. You can take Disney culinary, you can rock climb, you can film production, all these different things that are, super unique. You can learn at Disney.
Cool. So we go to commercial, and when we come back, Mariachi Cobra performs Feliz Navidad from the steps of the Mexico Pavilion, which I thought was quite lovely. Then J.D. Roth comes back, and he meets some more families, and they ask him what their favorite Christmas songs are. So the people actually, to their credit, pick real Christmas songs. And then he mentions that he wants a big screen TV so he can watch the Orlando Magic on the big screen TV, which were in the playoffs at that point. They would have been going for the playoffs. So also, there's a little
also
Shaq,
for you kids
was
at
big
home,
then.
like 27 inches would be a big screen back then.
Yeah, or a terrible rear projection that you had to sit directly in front of.
Or those
bad.
remember
Really bad.
those ones that it was like the movie screen, and it had the
Yes.
unit in front, like it would either hang down from your ceiling or on like one of these things we have for our microphones, where it was like a set space, and it would have the three
Yep.
the red, green, and blue lights, and
Three color guns. Yeah, it was essentially three different projections that would come and converge on the screen.
That was a
and they
terrible
had to be
picture
adjusted.
too. Yeah.
Those were big in bars before projections were commonplace, or the projection systems as you know them today. It was still projection, but yeah. And if anybody walked in front, you get these red, green, and blue shadows. And
really, our lives were terrible until like 3 years ago. Everybody, it was just
yeah, exactly.
You guys sound like so much fun. Just, everything was
We didn't
horrible.
have car phones or laser discs or any of those fancy things like you guys do now.
That's right.
So Chip and Dale come back, and they appear once again, JT, on the kitchen float, singing "We Need a Little Christmas" and a song called "Bake Shop," which I was unfamiliar with, but apparently must have been a thing. Winnie the Pooh and his giant honey pot shows up. They sing "Holly Jolly Christmas," and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And this is where I really kind of noticed, like, wow, they really spent a lot of time, like, arranging these songs. But you guys might remember that they actually had some albums, like CDs and cassettes that you could buy of, like, Disney characters singing Christmas songs, too. And I remember they sold them at Disney MGM in the little Christmas shop section. And
I think they mostly use them now for like as offensive weapons, and when they like lock prisoners up and are trying to break them, they just play it over and over again.
When they're trying to get Manuel Noriega out of his out of his compound. And then very similar. See, now I thought this was pretty unique, JT, but now that I've seen your special where they go to Blizzard Beach, they did the same thing again. They
said that's what I was gonna say. They did the same. It's identical. The L's going to Blizzard Beach.
They went from Typhoon Lagoon and yours, now Blizzard Beach on this one. And so
because Blizzard Beach had just opened.
Yeah. Again, brand new. Now, the one thing that I don't know what song they sang on the Typhoon Lagoon one, but they did
it was their own song that we're on VACATI
on
vacation.
Yeah.
So for this one, they took the song "Summertime Blues," the very famous one, and changed it to "Wintertime Blues."
Oh,
they did a twist.
Well, the weird thing about that is,
wow,
there is a cure for the wintertime blues, right? Like you go to Florida. The whole thing is there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Yeah, I think that's the way that they altered it. So again, there's the Christmas trees and there's elves, and it's a very elaborate production number.
They do everything at Blizzard Beach. Probably they do the big massive slide. They do the kid area. They're all over that place.
And that is the one thing that I say if you want to sit down and watch these specials, that's the one thing to watch for. There are these segments where they show like the new stuff and like all kinds of neat angles and things. So that part is kind of fun to watch.
And you'll see a lot of stuff that they don't do in those places anymore. So, we point out things like the shark reef at Typhoon Lagoon and all, but like there's a lot of stuff that like used to be there or they used to do that they don't do anymore.
True. So they come on to that, and then Regis and Joan talk about the wedding pavilion, which was also kind of newish at that point, and how people are getting married there. And then they actually interview Major Mike, who was the band leader when you would see these shots of like the Walt Disney World band like marching down Main Street, holding the baton. His name is Michael Davis. He actually does still live in Orlando, and apparently he was on these specials for like years and years. At the time that they interviewed him, he had been the band leader there for 15 years. So Brienne asks him a little bit like how he does stuff, and he gives her a little lesson on the baton real fast. And then she's distracted by Prince Charming walking by, and the segment kind of ends.
Scoop Leary interviewed him?
Yeah, Scoop Leary, that's right.
Got it.
And then next, from the new show at Disney MGM, but not at Disney MGM on Main Street, John Smith and Pocahontas performed Colors of the Wind from the show. Oh. So if you remember, after the movie came out, as they were likely to do at Disney MGM, they had a live version of the Pocahontas show. It's probably called Pocahontas Live on Stage, if I remember correctly. And so they had a float that they brought in front of the castle, and they performed the song. And there is a dancer in a turkey costume that you must see during this thing. The costumes are very cool, as they were doing during that time period with the live shows. They were actually kind of ambitious about how they staged stuff. They used a lot of puppetry techniques. They did a lot of more abstract things. So like, instead of having a person, for example, in like a coyote costume where it was like a fake cartoony coyote, they actually had like a person in like a coyote pelt. But there's this strangely somewhat realistic like turkey in this thing that you have to see. And then the showboat float, which was also in JT, they're probably still using that. Remember the parade float that looks like a big showboat? It's like the SS Disney.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that shows up with the Song of the South characters. I'm not making any comments about that, but they sing "We Need a Little Christmas" and "Zippity Doo Dah," as they are like to do. And then we introduced the Via Santa Christmas drill team from Tampa, who does a song. And it's, again, this is one of those like really odd things that there's this marching band drill team sort of, amateurish in there, but good. They're fine, I guess. And then Brad Kane from Aladdin, also in street clothes while everyone else is dressed in costumes. Performs, or I should say lip syncs, because he doesn't really perform. All these guys are just lip syncing One Jump from the movie soundtrack, which was, there was some staging. It was, okay. And then for our Lakeland listeners, the Kathleen High School Marching Band comes out and performs Good King Wenceslas, which is a riveting song when performed by a marching band. And then they stopped the show because Toy Story was so popular. They show like an excerpt from another show called The Making of Toy Story for like 6 minutes that has Pete Docter and John Lasseter and a bunch of folks like giving just like a rundown of how computer animation works and sort of like the approach of how they did things. So
that was to get everybody like a bio break, who was working on the show. All right, you got 6 minutes.
That's true. Yeah.
You needed something in the middle there. The commercials weren't long.
And it was hugely popular, so they were going to capitalize on that as much as they could. And it was it was in the can, so it didn't cost anything to throw that in there. And when that was funny, when they come back from commercial, there's a overhead shot of the Polynesian, and Joan London calls it the Polynesian Beach Resort. So just a little mistake there. And then after that, it's amazing. Regis and Joan are like really happy to promote the fact that there are 6 ribbon dancers performing with Jodie Benson as she performs Part of Your World. So isn't this an Olympic sport now? Like,
you're thinking rhythmic gymnastics with the ball and the ribbon.
Yeah, with the ribbon. So they have these dancers with like the ribbons on the sticks, like waving them around, presumably to be the ocean, I guess, as she's performing
Waves, yeah.
Part of Your World. And again, she's in street clothes, but they have Flounder and other characters. And then this is a really weird part. This is, I guess, where they're starting to run out of ideas. They cut to this scene that Regis calls a Disney character smorgasbord. of just like these characters walking down Main Street, and Regis and Joan are basically like picking out the names of like characters that they recognize off the top of their heads, just being like, oh, there's Goofy, and there's so-and-so, and there's this person, and there's that person. And like, we're at the 1 hour point at this point, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm watching all this.
Did you fast forward at all?
No, you know what? I am so dedicated to our listeners. I watched the entire thing from start to finish because I care. That's
good job.
Excellent.
The infamous castle float shows up.
Yeah, that's there.
The one that's always everywhere with the Sleeping Beauty characters on board. And Joan mentions that it's the tallest float of the parade, and it just makes it under the garland. So there you go. That comes back. Now, one thing that I thought was cool is throughout this show, when they go off to a commercial, there's these little bumpers that are shot with families wishing the audience Merry Christmas. Like, hey, we're the Johnson family from so-and-so. But they do it in different places. So they're like actually on attractions when they do it. So there's a shot of one on Splash Mountain, and they actually start the bit like right when they're getting ready to like go over the drop. And they finish the thing like as they're talking, like as they're going down the drop. So they have a person in the front with the camera poised backwards, and the family's like in the thing behind them, in the 2 rows behind, and they're like giving this thing like as they go over the drop, which is really cool. So they do it there. They have a family that's on the Tower of Terror, and they have them do the bit right as it's sitting at the top and then dropping down. They have a family with about 6 or 7 inner tubes on the lazy river at Blizzard Beach, and they're up on a bridge and shooting them as they go underneath it, which was cool. They have someone on the Grand Prix. They have a family in Catastrophe Canyon, like right as the water is about to like dump on them.
The whole car's shaking.
Yeah, it was really well done on the water sprites in front of the Grand Floridian. So they must have had them wired with wireless mics. Because there's like,
I gotta say it's kind of refreshing to see that, because in the 70s ones that we've talked about, it was just a lot of generic footage that they'd put in, and they wouldn't worry about anything staged. And here they're just asking real people to say something and react, and it doesn't feel as forced. Now it's just, you just feel like everybody is there and been told what to say, so that it is a little more natural than what you see today. So it is. As cheesy as it is, it's still refreshing.
The people did a great job. I don't know how many takes it took, or if they shot like just a bunch of them and found the best, but like everybody did a fantastic job on their stuff.
There's a funny one in the '93 too, JT. I don't know if you noted this, but where there's a number of different kids that all come together and they try to sing a song as well, and they're all talking about their favorite things at Christmas, and they're laughing, and they're having an honest good time with it. It's good.
Nice. So we come back from her. Do you remember the Hollywood Hitmen, the band that was on New York Street?
Not until I saw this. And it obviously didn't last.
Yeah. So they do We Wish You a Merry Christmas. They were one of those, the band units that would show up at places, at Disney just as walking entertainment. The Toy Story Parade, they finally go to the Disney MGM studios, where Joan London says strange things are happening. So that must mean the Toy Story Parade. And as we talked about with the Aladdin Parade that you saw, they would often do parades at Disney MGM to coincide with movies that had just come out. So, so this was the first Toy Story Parade that they had ever done. There was like a Block Party Bash later on, but this was the first one. It was just called the Toy Story Parade. And our stars Ben Savage and Ryder Strong reveal themselves as being Green Army men in order to do the promos for it. And they show a ton of the parade. They show the monkeys with the barrel full of monkeys. And this is interesting. So the Mr. Potato Head is not a costume, but he's like on one of the floats. And the monkeys will take like his nose off, and the character, Mr. Potato Head, is actually like talking about like, hey, you took my nose, give me my nose back. And they'll take like different pieces off of the potato head, the eyes and stuff, and put it back on. And he's commenting the whole time about it. So I don't think it was real time, but I think there were all of these things staged in the parade where stuff that was going on the floats were kind of, I don't want to say interactive, but like they're very self-aware in this parade. Like there's a thing where Woody is on the parade with like the Mr. Mike, and he's talking to the, like, he's aware that they're in a parade and they're talking about the parade, and he's like, hey, you folks having a good time? Like, they actually know. It's not done in this weird thing where, like, I don't know, like it's a pretend show or it's just this thing is happening. Like, they're fully aware that they're in a parade, and this whole thing is like based on that concept, which is I find kind of fascinating for some reason. Although it sounds dumb as I say it out loud. They show the Osborne lights, which I believe was the inaugural year, 1995. So they tease that a little bit because that was a new thing. And then JD Roth interviews back to JD Roth because his bits are so good.
Haven't had enough of him.
No, can't get enough of him. They're doing a segment on pets and Christmas, so that's kind of the setup. So he pulls this girl out of the audience named April, and she mentions that she has 2 dogs. One is named Bear, and the other one is named Cuda. So then the princesses arrive with Sarah London, Joan London's daughter, like in Cinderella's carriage. Remember that the very famous like Cinderella carriage that shows up all the time and is used at the wedding pavilion. So she's there. And then Brienne Leary talks with John Danforth, who she calls Mr. Float. And he kind of discusses the parade, some of the parade logistics, the number of units that they have in the parade and some of the sound stuff. And the Snow White is back ice skating behind her while that's going on, which is pretty cool.
She's always getting all the info.
Yeah, she is. She's got a
Scoop Leary.
She's got it. And then Bill Clinton makes another appearance from the White House with Hillary this time. And I guess we must have been in the Gulf War at this point, because wisely so, they make quite the point to like thank the troops and their families for their service during the holidays, and they wish everyone a blessed New Year. And it's actually a very nice piece. They don't read the story or anything. It's like it's just very straightforward, them talking to the camera, and it's really good. And then for the big finish, that children's choir in front of the EPCOT fountains from JT Special, they're back again singing "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and then finally Santa Claus shows up again in his, they probably still use the float if they still do it, with him like above the house in the sleigh. We got the dancing Christmas trees, ice skating Snow White, snowman, Mrs. Claus in front of her gingerbread float, and finally after 2 hours it thankfully comes to a conclusion, and they put the little title card up that says that this was a paid program.
I feel like this played like a Saturday Night Live episode. Like they put all the decent stuff at the beginning and then the trash.
That's
yeah.
That's true, because at this point you're like, the enticement is just that Santa's coming, and like you just got to wait for Santa to show up, right? But it's funny, it was really taken from the template, and now I'm curious how many other years were done with like this exact same template.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to go back and watch some of the others, but I think we'll wait till next year for that and compare notes. How's that?
And it's funny, when I started into this, I was thinking about some of the online controversy of like when they started doing the newer style Christmas specials with Ariana Grande, and I was pining for like, oh, I remember
terrible
watching the Christmas parades, and why don't they do the Christmas parade? And now that I've watched these, I'm like, oh God, thank God they don't do that anymore.
That's why
I'm glad they're doing what they're doing now, even if it doesn't appeal to me personally or like I think they made the right choice to pivot away from this and try to do something different.
Well, thanks for all the research, guys. I know I hope everybody enjoyed our additional holiday episode here. It's always fun to go back and look at this stuff over the years, and I think that's holiday episode 4 maybe we've done. I don't know.
We like to mark the holidays.
That's right. So we'll definitely be back next year. But as many of you know, we run 100% on donations here. So if you'd like to make a donation to Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, you can head over to retromagic.org. Pins, all sorts of other things, as well as our ornaments, our holiday ornaments that we talked about. We're giving one of those away this month, but if you'd like to make a donation, we can send that to you and hopefully get it to you before the holiday season ends. That'd be great. And also, too, we have our shirts and all different things up on TeePublic. So if you go to RetroWDW.com/support us, take you over to there. And how we had somebody write in. Zach wrote to us. He says he follows us on Twitter for a while, started listening to the podcast. He's been binge listening. We got a lot of binge listeners these days. And he wanted to thank us for adding the McFarkles to his Disney Parks lexicon and vocabulary. So he wanted to know if you had a McFarkles family vacation shirt in the works.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Thank you for the hard work.
We should we should invite our friend Reese to do the art for that, since she actually has I don't know if she's publicly done it, but privately she has sent us all art of her vision of the McFarkles, which I think is
including a holiday card last year.
Yeah, which I think is fantastic. So I will contact her and see if she can send that over, because it's fantastic. I really, really like it.
And as we talked about and hinted in the beginning, and we've told you for a number of episodes now, that 2020 is going to be the year of the film for us, where we've got so many different films and things, and we're just about ready to start. So we wanted to announce that January, we will be taking you back appropriately to the backlot tour of the Disney MGM studios as it was around opening day 1989. I've got some personal footage from October of that year. I remember getting up. It's almost like people now getting up for Galaxy's Edge. I remember arriving at the studios at 6:30 in the morning in October 1989 to get on the backstage studio tour, because you needed nearly 3 hours.
Oh yeah,
between the tour and the walkie tour. So we're gonna just do. Correct me if I'm wrong, Howard. We're gonna focus on the tram portion of it, and we will do the walking tour for another episode.
I believe so, because the intent will be, let's talk about what was there, and then we're going to talk about where those things are in relationship to Galaxy's Edge today. So I did some Twitter posts that got a lot of interest about where the Golden Girls house was. So we'll do a complete walkthrough
in Miami.
Yeah. So we'll do a complete walkthrough of where in Batuu are you in relation to the backlot tour.
And I think we can talk about some things such as the queue and the tram turnaround. I was there, October when we were there. I took a walk over to the studios and went over to was it Launch Bay or whatever they call it. And a lot of the original things still exist over there, including the pathway for the tram, and so it's really interesting to see some of that stuff still there. But it was a big deal back then in 1989, and I think everybody's gonna enjoy going back in time. And JT, this is gonna definitely be stuff that you remember as well. So we will be back with you in January 2020 for our 6th year putting podcasts together, which is amazing. And we're looking forward to it. So happy holidays, happy new year to everyone out there. Thank you for listening as always. Give us a shout out on iTunes if you can. A review there would be great. And we will see you in 2020. With that, Brian, take us out.
Follow the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society on Twitter and Instagram at LBV History and on the web at lbvhistory.org. Follow Todd McCartney and RetroWDW on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RetroWDW. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com. On Twitter, follow our web designer, Jason Bartell of Deepwater Studios, at JasonDWS. Our announcer, Andre Gardner, at Andre Gardner. And follow our hosts, Hal Bowers, on Twitter and Instagram, at GoAwayGreen. And on the web at kingdomofmemories.com. For JT Cougar on Twitter at LS1JT, on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Brian P. Miles. Retro Disney World is the monthly podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and is not affiliated in any way with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiary or affiliated entities.